Active Directory is a Microsoft operating system role. So if you see, when you install the Active Directory, you will select this option, add roles and features, and you will get this feature, Active Directory Domain Services. So it is a role in Microsoft Windows Server. So guys, it is a role, and we configure DCs, ADCs, trees, forest using Active Directory. If you don't have Active Directory, you can't configure the domain controller, additional domain controller, you can't configure the tree, you can't configure the forest. And the domain contains domain controller and additional domain controller and client. So this is our domain, ms.com, and it is having domain controller, additional domain controller, and it is having some clients. And we have installed these things, domain controller and additional domain controller, using Active Directory only. And guys, tree contains domains and subdomains. This is our tree, and it contains domains. This is the domain, and these are the subdomains. Okay, so combination of domain and subdomains is called as tree, and we can configure with the help of Active Directory. And the forest contain trees. So we have two trees in this example, and combination of these two trees is called as forest. So guys, Active Directory has 6 sub roles, okay, and they are called as operating masters. So the first role is called as naming master, the second role is called as schema master, third role is RID master, fourth role is PDC emulator, fifth role is infrastructure master, and sixth role is global catalog. RID stands for relative identifier, PDC stands for primary domain controller. So these are the 6 rows, okay, of the Active Directory. So naming master, schema master, RID master, PDC emulator, infrastructure master, these 5 rows are called as FSMO rows. So the first 5 rows are combined and named as flexible single master operation role, which is also called as FSMO rows. The first 5 rows, they are called as FSMO rows. And single master means these rows will be installed only on master server. These 5 rows, okay, FSMO rows, they will be installed on the domain controller, okay, that is DC. And flexible means roles can be transferred from DC to ADC. So these 5 roles, these FSMO roles, are there in domain controller, and they can be transferred to the other server, okay. So here in this full form, you can see single master. Single master means rows will be installed only on master server, only on the domain controller. And in this full form, it is having these roles as well, operation roles. Yeah, flexible. Here we have flexible. So flexible means roles can be transferred from domain controller to additional domain controller. We will see why to transfer the roles from domain controller to additional domain controller. And this catalog, we have one more service, the 6th service, it is called as global catalog. It is called as multi-master operation roles. Multi-master operation roles can be installed on multiple domains. Multi-master means these roles can be installed on multiple domains. Okay, we have multiple domains in our network. Okay, so this Global catalog, it can be installed on the main domain ms.com. It can be installed on the child domains. It can be installed on NDEF. Okay, it is not compulsory that it will be installed only on the domain controller. It will be installed on all the domains. Let us see the first role. What is the use of this first role? Naming master. This naming master checks the uniqueness of domain name in the forest, which means when we install the domain controller, it will ask for a name. So we have given ms.com, the domain name. Okay, so this naming master will check whether this ms.com is unique name or not. If it is not unique name, it will give you the error. Okay, you can't have two domain with same name. So who is verifying the uniqueness of the domain names? It is done by the naming master role. And domain should be unique like Gmail. Okay, so we have only one gmail.com all over the world. You can't have one more gmail.com. And it is also responsible, this naming master is also responsible for adding, removing, and renaming the domains in the forest. And we have second role, schema master. This schema master is a set of rules which is used to define the structure of Active Directory. So guys, the complete structure of Active Directory is defined in schema master. What is the meaning of structure? Let us try to understand. So Active Directory structure is designed by schema. For example, while creating a new user, which window should open? Okay, we are creating this user. We want to create a new user. You will go to this user container, then you will right click. Okay, so it will give you one drop down list. Okay, it is mentioned in the schema master. If you right click, what should happen? Then you will click new. Again, you will get one new drop down list. Okay, so this drop down list windows are mentioned in this schema master. Then you will select user. So when you select user, this window should open. So these thing mentioned in the schema master. And while creating a group, which window should open? So we want to create a group. So you will right click on the user container, then you will select new, then you will select group, then this will be opened. Okay, all these things are mentioned in the schema master. So while promoting a server to domain controller, which window should be opened, etc. And what schema master contains? Okay, so the schema master contains the definition of all the objects which are stored in Active Directory. Objects means users, groups, OU. So it contains the definitions of all the objects which are stored in Active Directory. Okay, so schema is further classified into classes and attributes. Class is a template that is used to create an object. So schema is having class. Class is a template, okay, which is used to create the object. So this class is used to create the users, okay, users, groups, computers, and printers. So when you open the user container, okay, so you will get the window to create the user. So it is called as object, and object is the template. Okay, so under object we have groups, computers, and printers. And attributes is nothing but the properties of users. Let me show you. So guys, schema contains classes. Classes are nothing but the objects, and we have multiple objects, users, groups, computers, and printers. Okay, and these objects have properties. Okay, they are called as attributes, and properties contains username, phone number, address, profile part, logon hours, etc. Okay, so this is the object. This is the class, we can say. Under the class, we have object, and object is having properties. Okay, if you click this properties, so it is, you will see these attributes, you will see these properties: general, address, accounts, profile, telephone, organization, member of. So these are the properties of this object. Okay guys, so this schema is further classified into classes and attributes. Class is a template that is used to create an object, and attributes are properties of an object. And naming master and schema master are forest wide roles. If we have forest in domain, these two rows are installed in the root forest only. So you will find these two rows in this ms.com. You will find it in forest, root forest. Okay. And guys, RID master, PDCU emulator, infrastructure master are domain wide rows. So you will find these three rows in all the domains. So these three roles are available on every domain in the forest. And let us see what is RID master. RID master, it assigns a unique ID to objects. So it will assign one unique ID to users, groups, computers, OUs, etc. Why it is providing the unique ID? To avoid the duplication. So let us say we can't create two user accounts with the same name. So we have one user bill. Again, you can't create the same username, same account. Okay. Who is avoiding this duplication? This RID master, by providing the unique ID to each object. And we can't create two groups with the same name. So RID master, it provides a unique ID, and unique ID is called as SID. SID stands for security ID. And this security ID is the combination of domain ID and relative ID. Okay guys, so let us try to understand what is this domain ID and relative ID. So it provides a security ID, and it is a combination of domain ID and relative ID. So guys, if you run this command, you will go to command prompt and you will run this command: WMIC user account get name and SID. SID means security ID. When you type this command, when you enter, you will get this output. And as I told you, you will get the SID. So SID is the combination of domain ID and relative ID. So you will get the list of users here, like administrator, guest, Bill, Satya, user 2, Jeff, Sundar, S1, S2, S3, S4, F2, F3, F4, S5. These are the users created in ms.com domain. So these are the users of same domain, which means till here it is a domain ID. If you see, all the users are having the same domain ID, and the last section, this one, it is the relative ID. A relative ID will be unique. So domain ID plus relative ID. Domain ID will be same because all these users are the part of same domain, ms.com. So ms.com will have the same ID, and relative ID is the unique ID will be provided to each object. Let me show you. Let us run this command. So we'll copy this command. And we'll run this command on the server. So it is collecting the information and it will give you the output. So it is the combination of domain ID and relative ID. Domain ID plus relative ID is called as security ID. Okay, so this is domain ID and this is the relative ID. So domain ID will be same and these are the users under this domain ms.com. Administrator, guest, Bill, Jeff, Satya, S1, S2, S3, S4, F1, F2, F3, F4, Elon, ADC user. These users they have created in ms.com. So the domain ID will be same till here. And this relative ID, RID will be different, 500, 501, 502. And it is provided by which service, guys? It is provided by RID master to avoid the duplications. And it allocates pool of relative IDs to domain controller. So it will provide the pool of relative IDs to domain controller, and domain controller will assign the RIDs to the objects from its pool. And guys, we have one more subdomain, what do you say? Sub role, PDC emulator. Okay, PDC stands for primary domain controller. So let us try to understand, guys, why it is saying primary domain controller here. So if you go back to Windows NT environment, in our older environment, the domain controller, we used to call this domain controller as PDC. And our additional domain controller was BDC, backup domain controller. So we used to use these terminologies for domain controller and additional domain controller. Nowadays, we are saying it is domain controller and additional domain controller bus, but in Windows NT environment, it was PDC, primary domain controller, and our additional domain controller was backup domain controller. Okay, so let us say in your newer environment, this is your new environment where you have domain controller, not the additional domain ADC, sorry, PDC. In your latest environment, the primary server is called as domain controller, not PDC. And you have Windows NT devices or operating system in your network. And this Windows NT devices don't recognize domain controller. They need PDC. They need primary domain controller, but we don't have the primary domain controller. So this service, PDC emulator, it emulates as primary domain controller. It will act as a primary domain controller for Windows NT operating system. So it is emulating the functionality of primary domain controller and acts as PDC for Windows NT servers if you have Windows NT servers in your environment. Let us say you don't have Windows NT devices in your network. Then it is having some additional roles as well. Let us see the additional roles of this PDC emulator. It also updates the password from client to server. So when a user changes the password on a client machine, PDC updates the password to the server. Let us say on client 3, user 3 has changed the password. Previously it was 123, now it has changed to 235. So this password will be updated to the server using this PDC emulator. Okay, the passwords are updated by PDC emulator. And guys, if you remember the Kerberos protocol, this Kerberos protocol is used to confirm the password with confirm the username and password only. So let us say we have created some username and passwords on the domain controller like ABC, PQR, and their passwords are 123. And on this user 1 or the client 4, this ABC wants to log on to this client. So this Kerberos protocol, it will go to the domain controller and it will check the username and password if it is available or not. So it will check the username and password. Kerberos protocol doesn't update the password to the domain controller. The password is updated by this PDC emulator. Okay, so PDC emulator updates the password to the server. This is the second task done by this PDC emulator. And the third task, let us try to understand. PDC emulator also synchronizes the time on all the domain controllers. So it synchronizes the time as well. So let us say this ms.com is having 10 a.m. So it will synchronize the time on to all the domains in your forest. This is the third task. And the fourth task, if a user changes the password on one domain, then attempts to log on from another domain may still have old information. Okay, let us try to understand. Let us say this domain mcsc.ms.com is having one user, m user, and its password was 123. Now it is changed to 235. So this user has changed its password and it tries to log on in sales.mysql.com. So guys, they are the part of same forest, so they can log on to any computer in any domain. So this M user wants to log on. This user belongs to mcsc.ms.com, but he wants to log on to a computer in sales.mysql.com. So he will go to this computer and he will type the username. He will enter the username like this: muser@mcsc.ms.com. Okay, so this PC doesn't know about the new password. He has changed the password and he tries to log on to the computer of sales.mysql.com and he enters the username and password. This PC doesn't know, or this domain doesn't know the new password. So instead of giving the error, so before giving the bad password error, it will forward the authentication request to PDC emulator. So what it will do, it will forward the request to this PDC emulator, and it will check whether the password is changed or not. Okay, so if the password is changed, this PDC emulator will say that the password is changed and you can give the access to this user. Okay, so before giving a bad password error, it forwards the authentication request to PDC emulator to determine whether the password is actually valid. Okay guys, so this was about the PDC emulator. Now we'll see the fifth role, infrastructure master. What is the use of this infrastructure master? Infrastructure master maintains and updates the universal group membership information. Let us try to understand what is the meaning of this. Maintaining the updates and updates the universal group membership. So for example, a user can access the printer of mcsc.ms.com from ms.com. So it is used for inter-domain operation. Okay, let us try to understand. So this ms.com is having one printer. Okay, it is in this domain, it is having one printer, and user from mcsc.ms.com, m user wants to print some documents. Okay, so he is in a different domain. He is in mcsc.ms.com and the printer is in a different domain. The printer is in ms.com. So he wants to print it. So he can print it. So who is allowing these two different objects from different domains to communicate? It is done by infrastructure master. So it is used for inter-domain operations. A user can access the printer of mcsc.ms.com from ms.com. So objects in domain, referencing objects in other domain using SID. So how they are referencing the other objects using this SID.